Welcome to the How of Business with your host, Henry Lopez, the podcast that helps you start, run, and grow your small business. And now, here is your host.
Welcome to this episode of the How of Business. This is Henry Lopez. My guest today is Megan Bennett. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Henry. I'm so excited.
Yeah, looking forward to this conversation. We've talked about PR in the past, but it's been a while and I want to get a fresh perspective. And so that's what we're going to focus on. Megan is an expert on public relations. And so she's here to share her experiences and her real business tips for using public relations to either help us start or grow a business, just to promote a small business. So that's what this episode is all about. To receive more information about the How of Business, including the show notes page for this episode and how you can continue supporting my show and receive workshop discounts, join my monthly group coaching session, you join my Patreon membership. You can get more information and learn about it at thehowofbusiness.com. Also, wherever you're listening today to this episode, I encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes of the How of Business. So Megan has been on the Light Years Ahead public relations team for over 20 years. She started working at Light Years Ahead just a year after college, very interesting journey, and fell so in love with public relations that she stayed on and helped build the company into what it is today. Her expertise focuses on managing clients, engaging with top national media daily, and securing meaningful media placements. We'll talk about what that means. She has spearheaded and implemented countless successful PR public relation campaigns for numerous brands. Megan's forte, though, lies in her outgoing and engaging personality, as we will soon come to hear. That's why I had her come to this episode, which has solidified extremely strong relationships with top consumer, print, online, and broadcast media contacts. She understands what the media wants and what tactics work to obtain the most high-profile placements. When it comes to placing a story or segment for a client, she is relentless with the media, and she doesn't stop until she makes it happen. Megan lives outside of Kansas City. So once again, Megan Bennett, welcome to the show.
Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So very interesting. As I was looking at your background, you haven't had that many jobs. You shortly after college started with Light Years Ahead. Is that correct?
Yes. So this is my second job out of college.
Wow.
And yeah, but I lucked out because most people, it takes years to find something that you're passionate about. And I fell into this, I don't know, when I was 22 years old, and I've been doing it ever since.
Amazing. I didn't look at what did you study in university?
I was actually a theater major, and then I did some business classes because I thought I wanted to do some acting and work in casting and communications. And then I think it was like my junior year of college, I started to do internships in public relations, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do instead. So it sort of helped me, though, because it made me not afraid to put myself out there and be fearless and get rejected, because, acting is all about rejection. So
Right. As is sales, as is putting our small business out there. We bring something to market, and then the market either accepts or rejects it. So all of that is so applicable. But why do you think it is? What combination of things was it that made you so fall in love with public relations?
First of all, it was my mentor who hired me. We are still like family, and she really taught me the ropes. When she hired me, she said, "You're going to learn so much from this that you're going to want to pay me for everything you're learning." And it was true. I mean, I started kind of part-time, and then 3 weeks into the job, she had to go out of town on this trip. And she was gone for almost a month. And she said, "All right, you're in charge." And I just got thrown in with the wolves, and I loved every part of it. I love consumer products. I love working with people. I don't know. It was just like the high of seeing clients get public relations and get media coverage when I started working within a few weeks and seeing that I was really good at something. And ever since then, I've just been very passionate about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, so let's get into, I'd like to start with the definition, again, as we always do in the show, from the perspective of a small business owner like myself. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, what is public relations?
So public relations is basically a marketing tactic where you pay an agency or a firm or a person a monthly retainer to pitch your product to all the top media, which is digital, websites, magazines, TV. And we're pitching your brand to the producers and the editors. We're not paying for advertising. We're reaching out to them and telling them about you or your brand and why it's so special, and getting samples out there and doing intensive follow-up until that media decides to cover your brand authentically in a story or segment that's not paid. So for example, I might pitch a skincare line to the Today Show over and over again and get in touch with a top producer. And then she says, okay, we're doing a story about retinol this week, and I want to include your brand in the roundup. And then it's authentically done. We don't pay for it. So it's sort of like third-party editorial endorsement, which is so much more meaningful than paid advertising, because you know that it's authentic and real.
When I think about this now from my local little Main Street business, I can do that same thing, but at a more local or regional level, if that's what would benefit me most, right?
Yes, absolutely. We do both local and national. It just depends on what the client wants.
And what we need. And so placement, I had mentioned that term before, and I think you touched on it. So placement means that you get that press release or other mention placed in whatever the coverage might be, whether it's, a news segment or a periodical or a newspaper or whatever it might be. That's what we call a placement. Is that right?
Yes. And it could be even a roundup or in a listicle, which they list different best natural deodorants available right now. And then they list your brand. So it's really anything where the media is covering you authentically would be called a media placement.
Yeah. And the listicles, just since you touched on that, have become such a big deal, I think, Megan, because from a search engine optimization, people often are searching for, top best, whatever it might be. So getting that kind of placement can be very valuable for my small business.
Yes. Yes, it can.
Yeah. All right. So how do you go about it when you engage a new client? What is the process at a high level?
So when we engage a new client, the first thing that we do is we set up a meeting with the client right before we start, and we go through sort of a Q&A with them, finding out all their features and benefits of either them or their brand, because we also work with experts as well. And we have a creative director that writes all of our press materials. She gets on the call and we ask questions and just get everything ready. And then within like the first week, we have a pitch ready to go to start promoting the brand. And then within the next, between the first week and a half, 2 weeks, we have a backgrounder as well, which is like all the information on what we're trying to pitch in one sheet. And so really it's just us just running. I mean, once we get the first pitch out there, and a pitch is basically an email that's very provocative and compelling, but short, with a very compelling subject line that gets the media to open it and learn more about your brand. So we start to send weekly pitches, and every week we'll change sort of what the topic is or what the theme is to make it different, because we don't want to keep sending the same thing over and over again. And we target different media. So we would create customized media lists of who we want to reach out to. And then it's us just pitching the brand, getting samples out, or setting up interviews if it's an expert, doing intensive follow-up until stories and segments start coming into place. And that's kind of how it happens. And sometimes it can happen within the first 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks. Sometimes it takes 2 months. But we always say for a real campaign to get going, it takes at least 3 months to really see the momentum of the placements start to come in, because, months 1 and 2, we're starting to get samples out there. People have to test stuff. So it takes a while for the placements.
And this is more than just a press release.
Yes. I mean, the press release is sort of an old school term now, because a press release would be like, when I first started, that's what we would do. We would write press releases, and it's breaking news. Rembrandt Oral Care Products has just released a new whitening toothpaste. That was the first account that I ever worked on. And so that, that's one example of a press release. But I would say that, right now, what we do is we, once in a while, if a client is releasing news about their brand, then yes, we'll do a release. We'll send it to all the trade media. We'll send it to all the top media for coverage. But we really do backgrounders, which is more of like an informative sheet on the brand with a beautiful picture that shows really what it is and what it does. And so when we're actually pitching, we just have a compelling pitch with a beautiful picture. And then if they want more information, then we send a backgrounder.
I see.
So hopefully that makes sense. It's just
Yeah,
all these additional press materials that we used to make are kind of unnecessary at this point.
Okay.
So yeah, because also now you can just direct people to websites so much easier, or to their Amazon where they can purchase the product. It's just different than it used to be.
The key is to get that outlet's or that person's attention, get them intrigued, and then you give them more, or you give them what they need to produce their article or whatever publication it is. That's the idea. It's kind of the elevator pitch, if you will, of why they should be interested in writing about or mentioning my company.
Yes, exactly.
You touched on brand a lot. So do I need to have, do you think, some level of branding complete for PR to be most effective?
I would say that if you are a product or service, you need to have your website done. You need to have the product available. If it's not available for purchase and we're sending out samples, then what's the point in them featuring it if nobody can buy it? Right. So that's like, the first thing I would say is you've got to get that together. If you're an expert, same thing, get your LinkedIn page set up, make sure that you have a CV and bio, make sure that you have a website about yourself that people can easily reach out to you. Because otherwise I feel like it's sort of a waste for you to hire somebody like us if you're not totally ready.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are some of the things I've understood that some of the things that media outlets are looking for is things like, new jobs you're going to create, or you're leasing some space, something that's newsworthy. But tell me about that. What is it what are some of those components that are newsworthy, if that's the right term?
Well, I would say newsworthy stuff is obviously if it's topical, if something is going on in the news and you have a service or expert or product, then that's a good time to pitch it. But other than that, I would say that we have to kind of come up with those ideas. We have to come up with what's newsworthy. We represent a cybersecurity expert right now, and there's been a bunch of AI voice scamming going on. And so that's newsworthy. So we're reaching out to TV right now, asking them to interview him about it. So you kind of have to come up with those stories yourself and figure out what's newsworthy. I would say that, you're representing a skincare brand and it's natural and vegan. That's not newsworthy.
Yeah.
But that's our job, is to spin it and find out what would make it newsworthy. That, it was created by two women, one with Eastern European roots and one with Korean roots. And the woman with the Eastern European roots didn't understand why the Korean woman's skin looked so thick compared to hers. And they created this thing to, so that's the story.
Yeah. That's the story.
Yeah.
Got it. And that's what, and again, it's a component, either something like that where it's interesting or engaging or it's topical. Those are the things that you look to then apply to it and pitch to get the attention that'll then create somebody picking it up in one fashion or another.
Exactly. And I would say that the key is in the subject line, because the subject line of the email is what they read first.
Got it.
And the first sentence.
And so mostly you're still doing the bulk of your pitching, at least initially, through email.
Yes. When I first started, 21 years ago, I was smiling and dialing where I'd I'd print out the media list, get on the phone and get hung up on about 20 times a day.
Right.
But now it's mostly email, unless it's
because people just are not going to answer the phone. Is that why you're just not going to get through to people?
Or if it's somebody I have a personal relationship, I text them or call them. But but most of the time, even if it's personal, they want to talk via email. But if I can't get in touch with them, then I resort to the stalking methods of texting and WhatsApping and, Instagram and all that stuff. So.
Excellent. All right. As I look at PR, how should I, as a small business, look at PR as part of my marketing plan? And let's look at this from two different perspectives. As I'm getting ready to maybe launch a business, start a business, where should PR fall? How much of it should be part of my marketing plan? Because what I find is that most small business owners, at best, we might allocate some money to a press release, and that's about it. So what's your thoughts there and experience there as to how I should include it as part of my marketing plan to launch a business?
I think it's very important, especially if you have a small budget, you're a small business. I'll give you an example. We worked with the client that we still work with. It's a veteran founded line of Wagyu beef. And they had tried so many different ways, they're a small business, to get their brand promoted through social media, ads, different marketing tactics. And they hired us in 2021. And we started to work for them. And we got them immediately through public relations. Like, I think it started off at like over $10,000 in sales from one write-up. Just because the product was so good. 2 months later, we got them in Food and Wine for voted the best hot dog, and they made $250,000 in sales. And they said that PR was the best tactic for them. Now, it does depend on what your brand is, but if you have a small marketing budget, I always recommend public relations first, because that is the way to get you the brand awareness, where then you can take that awareness and use other tactics to help grow it. And also just getting an authentic review from the media is so much more meaningful than paying for an ad. People are going to want to buy your product if they've seen you on Good Morning America and you're this emerging brand, over you doing an ad on Facebook about how great your product is. So it just helps to build that credibility. And it's a huge bang for your buck. You might pay us $3,500 a month for a campaign per month, and you might pay that same $3,500 for one ad that might not do anything. And we might get you, 1 month, 10 write-ups that can help drive brand awareness, and help build your brand, and sometimes can drive sales too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned a number there, because that's what I find is the biggest concern, especially me. I assume that it's like, well, that's not something I can afford. PR and hiring a PR agency is something that bigger companies do. That's not for me as a small business owner. That's the constraint, I think, or the assumption that most people have, I think.
Yes, it is. And I would say that most of the big firms are much more expensive. Some of them start at $8,000 to $15,000 a month, depending on where they are. And you're just a number for them. We're a boutique agency, so we are a lot less expensive, but we might even be too expensive for some entrepreneurs. And if that's the case, I recommend finding a publicist, just a one-man show that can help you out for a small budget. But you're not going to get the same results that you would.
Right.
But
it might be what I can afford, and at least I include that as part of my marketing plan and budget for a small startup.
Yeah, because you also want to be able to add those as seen on your website and give that credibility to yourself. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that social proof, if that's what it is, and that credibility is so much more powerful than an ad, especially nowadays in the way that people make decisions or get impressions about a brand.
Exactly.
This is Henry Lopez with a brief break from this episode to share a special offer from our new show sponsor, Relay. Relay is an online banking and money management platform for small business. As a small business owner, you need banking that's truly built for your small business. No more fees, no minimum balances, no more bookkeeping problems come tax season, and no more branch visits to complete basic banking tasks. Now you can take control of your money with Relay, an online banking and money management platform that puts you in complete control of your cash flow. First, there are no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more of your hard-earned money. And Relay is the official banking partner for Profit First, so you can set up multiple checking and savings accounts and automate their percentage-based allocations using smart transfer rules. Relay also allows you to make unlimited payments via ACH, wires, or checks, earn interest on every spare dollar with Relay savings accounts, provide secure, read-only access to your accountant and bookkeeper, and speed up bookkeeping with reliable bank feeds that sync directly into QuickBooks Online and Xero. Best of all, it takes less than 10 minutes to apply online, and it's absolutely free. And as a special offer to the How of Business listeners, sign up for Relay using the link on the show notes page for this episode, and you'll also get $50 added to your account once you fund your new account. You can find the link to the show notes page in the description for this episode. Relay customer deposits are FDIC insured through their partner bank, Thread Bank, member FDIC. Please see the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com for more details. If I don't have a great product or service, it's going to be tough for you to get some traction for me, though, isn't it?
Yes. If it's not a good product and we're getting negative feedback on it because of the taste or whatever, it is more difficult to get that. But some brands have been spinned into from ordinary to extraordinary just from good messaging or good packaging.
And it could be that I just need a particular niche that does appreciate what I have to offer.
Yes.
For an existing business now, so I've been in business for several years, when do I bring in PR? Is it something that should be part of my annual marketing plan, or do I bring it in when I'm launching something new, a new location, a new product? When do I use PR on an ongoing basis?
For any brand, I would recommend using PR on an ongoing basis when you know that you want to continue marketing something, a message that you want to continue for several months. So if it's an event or a grand opening, it's a one-off. We would work for that month, pitch the event, do the follow-up, and be done. But if it's something where you want to continuously pitch different products and services and messages, or you're a doctor and you want to talk about different treatments that you do each week, then it should be something that's ongoing, because you want to keep building your brand. Most of our clients have been with us for years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that will hire us for 3-month projects, which is great, but then they'll come back seasonally.
Right.
And then the other ones, it's just, they stay with us because it's important to them, and we work with a lot of private equity firms too. So those brands need constant coverage.
Yeah. I got to think that, going back to the pitch, the appeal of the pitch, part of it now is if I've got a mature business, an established business, success, people talking about it, that's gives a lot more credibility then to that pitch as to why somebody should talk about me or mention me.
Yeah, it does.
Including maybe listing me on that listicle, right? So because now, I've established, I've proved that what I offer is good, and people, because what I find is that often the people who are writing these listicles are not doing much research. So they're kind of depending on whatever limited research they're doing to feel comfortable recommending my solution or my product.
Yeah, a lot of the time, I think they just Google search it, and whatever comes up first, they put on the listicle.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. All right. So what are some of the other common mistakes, or what are some common mistakes that you see small business owners make with public relations? Obviously, number one has got to be not using public relations or thinking the press release is it. But what else do you see are some common mistakes?
Common mistakes. One I would say is just trying to micromanage the PR firm. And if you're a small business and you're hiring us, let us do our job. If you're going to be looking at every single media bite we get out there and scrutinizing everything, and that's happened before in the past, and it is a waste of the client's time to hire a brand that you want to be in charge of all day, every day. Find somebody in-house. That's, I guess, would be the first thing. Another mistake would be, we've been hired before where it would be an expert that wants to have interviews, but then unfortunately we get all these interviews and the expert is never available to do them, or they cancel last minute. And so it's not great for our credibility either with the media. Another mistake would be working with a brand that says they're ready, and then once we start, like, the website has glitches and nobody can purchase the product. So those are kind of things that have happened. I mean, we've had so many different hiccups through the years, but for the most part, it's been pretty successful. I mean, I think once or twice we've had to get rid of a client just because it wasn't working, or it wasn't a good fit, or the product wasn't getting good feedback. But most of the time, we handle those ebbs and flows and problems pretty easily.
Yeah. So, I want to go back to the point about micromanaging, because I can see where the reason I might lean towards doing that is, as a small business owners, we talked about budgets being tight. I'm always trying to measure the ROI on whatever I spend, right? And so if I spend on some Google ads, I can measure the clicks and I can see how many conversions. And so there's a definable ROI. With PR, it's a little different. So how do you recommend that I look at the ROI of the investment I make with you for PR?
Well, yeah. And that is another thing that we have had with clients. We're very honest from the beginning. And we say, if you're looking to have a PR firm to drive sales, then you're barking up the wrong tree with us, because we never guarantee that you're going to make sales from anything. What we can guarantee is that we're going to get you brand awareness so that people know about your brand. But sometimes, I mean, we could get a client on the Today Show and they might not make any sales from it, but they can put it on their website as seen on the Today Show, you know? So I think that I would say that it really depends on, who the client is. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, it does in part. It fascinates me because so in part, yes, because that is the challenge, Megan. We as small business owners have a hard time spending money on brand development, on brand awareness, because we can't quantify it, right?
Yes.
And even my guidance to a lot of my clients is be careful with spending money on brand that you can't measure, because often we don't have that luxury, quote unquote. But I get it. And that's why it goes back to the question I had asked later, is how does it complement? How is it a part of my overall marketing plan? And understanding the importance of getting that brand recognition then enables my other marketing efforts to be more successful.
Yes. Yes. So like if you're a doctor and you're opening a new practice and you've never had any public relations, getting a PR firm to get you that credibility, getting you interviews in, prevention, women's health, health magazine, for whatever you specialize in, to get you that national coverage is going to get you the credibility on your website, so that when somebody goes on there, they see that you're legitimately the real deal.
That's right. Yeah. Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. So that's a great way to put it about separating. And it's not about generating sales. It's about building brand awareness, which I think goes even back to, again, I've got to make sure that I've got my branding at least at a level that that I can begin to use PR to build it and to amplify it, right? So the product, like you said, has to be ready, or the service, the website, those kind of things have to be in place and solid for this to be worth the investment, it sounds
yes.
like to me.
And we recommend having a good social media campaign that either you're doing yourself, because you have to find an outlet to share these articles that we're getting you.
Right.
And an audience of followers that hopefully will be getting you just from coverage.
Yeah. Okay. So when I get that coverage, that placement, then I've got to have a complimentary campaign that leverages that exposure. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Other tips that you might have, you've touched on a couple of, do-it-yourself PR. You've touched on some of those things, but one of the things you've touched on and you talk about a lot, I know, Megan, is crafting that perfect pitch. You talked about the subject line as how important that is. I think immediately when you were saying that, I'm thinking about that's how important it is when I do any other email campaigns, right?
Yeah.
The subject line needs to be powerful. But what else comes to mind that you've seen can be effective as I try to pitch myself out there to the media?
Yeah, I would start with whatever the first sentence is in your pitch. I wouldn't start with, did you know that over 5 million people, blah, blah, blah. Don't start with the fact. You want to start with something personal, or a question. Are you working on any stories featuring the best clean natural deodorants to try this year? If so, we represent blah, 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 blah. And you get into it. Here's more, see below information and let me know if you'd like a sample. Then a small paragraph, link to whatever it is you're trying to sell, and a good photo. So make sure you have good artwork of whatever it is you're trying to pitch. Product photo on white background is what we recommend keeping for the media when they ask. But for the pitch, lifestyle photos are always great of the product too, like whatever you would use on Instagram. So I always recommend putting in a photo. Don't send a novel. The shorter, the better. You could even just send a query and leave it short and say, if you're interested, let me know and I'll send you more information. I also don't usually ever attach anything, because sometimes it won't get to them or they'll think it's spam.
Yeah, great tips. Let me break down a couple of them. So if I'm hearing you, it's got to be engaging right off the bat. Don't bury the headline. Keep it short. People are scanning things. Is that why the image is so important? Is because somebody might just scan it and the image is what might catch their attention?
Yes. Like we represent on and off a bidet brand, and they look straight at the bidet and they're like, ooh, I want one of these
Interesting.
at home.
Yeah.
I need to review it. Or we
Um,
represented a nonprofit where the owner they do cow hug therapy. So pictures of her hugging cows. I mean, what more provocative of photo could you ask for?
Right, exactly. And they're thinking about it conversely. Oh, this will grab attention on my publication or website or whatever it is that they're going to put that article or information on, right?
Yes.
A photo instead of video.
Well, I link to video too, if there is one. If there's something that you think is going to really grab their attention, you just hyperlink to it.
Mm-hmm. But again, that now requires that recipient to take another step to go see that, right? So I would have a picture and a video if that's the case.
Yeah, I always put a picture in. I don't ever like embed a video, but I do link to videos, and sometimes if they're interested, they'll click.
They'll click on it. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Great tips. All right, what should I look for then as a small business? What are the things that I should look for to engage a PR agency?
I would do, a Google search is a good way to look. I would do referrals. I would ask other people in businesses that have a public relations firm who they use, because referrals are we get a lot of our business from referrals, just from past clients. And do your research. I would talk to a few. And I guess one of the main questions to ask them is, would you be handling this or would it be somebody else? Because a lot of the bigger firms, they're so great at first and they're acting like they're involved, and then they pass it on to an account executive who has 20 other brands, and you never hear from them. So we actually, the way our agency works is we all handle the accounts together and we take turns pitching the brands so that the editors don't get really sick of us and we don't get stale on a brand. And so we're all involved in everything. And I think that's kind of an important thing these days to do, and not just put it off on one person, unless you're just working with one person.
So who will I be working with? Who will be representing me? What other question comes to mind that I should ask a prospective PR agency?
Ask the firm, what is your out clause? Do you have a 30-day out clause? If I'm unhappy, how can I get out? Because a lot of firms, they suck you into these year-long contracts, and that's, that can be kind of scary, especially for a new brand.
So how do you guys do that?
We recommend that a brand commits to 3 to 6 months at least, but we have a 30-day out clause anyways. So it's really 30 days notice.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about the services that you offer. Again, it's light years ahead public relations.
Yes.
And so give me the summary of the pitch of what you offer.
Okay. At Light Years Ahead, we offer a grassroots approach to public relations, and our specialty lies in promoting people, experts, products, services, and getting them into the top lifestyle media, national and local, and getting the media to talk about you and cover you in a provocative third-party way that helps you build brand awareness. That's really what we do. We are professional stalkers, is what I call myself. I reach out to the media, I stalk them, I get rejected all the time, and I just keep going and going until they contact me and they say, all right, we're ready for you. And then, we just get media placements. That's what we do, is we get your brand covered in top media so that you get that awareness that helps you grow your business.
And so when I engage you, do you're going to get me X number of placements, or how does that work? What's the commitment?
No, we don't guarantee anything. We just guarantee that we're going to build your brand awareness. And most of the time, I would say after the first month, some placements start to trickle in, but it just really depends, because we never know what we're going to get because we don't pay for it.
Mm-hmm. How do you then suggest, going back to the topic of ROI, how do I measure that it's working?
I would say you could measure from, first of all, if you see more traffic on your website, if you see more followers on your social media page, if you get more phone calls, more people start to reach out to you and they know about it. That's how you're going to know. And obviously, if you get a big bump in sales and PR is what you're using, then that's what it's from. I mean, we have seen with many clients, they do get major ROI from a PR placement. We just don't guarantee it, but it definitely happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I always, it's amazing sometimes business owners don't do this, but then understandably, but we have to ask, how did you hear about us? How did you find us? And then people aren't going to always remember, but they might well mention, oh, I saw you in such and such article, or I saw you on this list. And so that helps us understand as well and measure as best we can what the source is of this bump or this new lead or opportunity.
You're right. I mean, we do PR for a nonprofit that's with veterans and horses, and they had this event in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. We got the co-founder on a TV segment, and they said like several hundred people showed up, and they said 90% of them, it was from seeing that TV segment.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's publicity right there. And we didn't pay a dime for that TV segment.
Right. All right. If they want to learn more, if I want to learn more about your firm, where should I go and what should I look for?
You can go to our website. It is lightyearsahead.com and go to the contact us page. Or you can email me directly at Megan, MEGAN @lightyearsahead.com.
All right. Before I start to wrap it up, is there anything I did not ask you that I think we should know as small business owners about PR?
I don't think so. I mean, I think
Okay.
it was pretty thorough. We
Good.
got it covered.
Good. We'll wrap it up here in a moment, but I'm always looking for a book recommendation. So is there a book you've read recently or in the past that you would recommend?
My favorite book of all time is The Power of One by Bryce Courtney. And I recommend listening to it as an audiobook. It's empowering, wonderful. The guy that does the voiceover is amazing. And it's just the most uplifting, inspiring. It's fiction, but it's always the book I recommend. It's my very favorite.
I have not.
Don't watch the movie. It's not great.
Okay. It was disappointing, huh?
It was.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for that recommendation. We'll have a link to it on the show notes page for this episode. All right, Megan. So let's summarize it. As I look at public relations from the perspective of a small business owner, what do you want us to take away from this conversation?
I want you to take away that, if you're a small business and you want to do one marketing tactic that you think is important, public relations is it. It's a great bang for your buck. And it is the way to get your brand out there so that people know about you.
Yeah, well said. For me, the takeaways here, including that, is understanding that the way I'm seeing it, Megan, you tell me if I've got it wrong, PR needs to be part of my overall marketing campaign.
Yes.
I need to understand that it's about building my brand. Therefore, my brand needs to be, somewhat developed, not perfect, because brands evolve.
Yes.
But it complements those other sales activities. It gives me that proof, that credibility that I need to then leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And as small business owners, we shouldn't assume that PR and hiring a PR firm is beyond my reach, beyond my budget.
Yes.
Tell me again where you want us to go online to learn more.
lightyearsahead.com.
Excellent. Megan, great conversation. A lot of actionable tips and advice. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today and sharing your insights on public relations for small business owners.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun and insightful for me as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is Henry Lopez, and thanks for joining me for this episode of The How of Business. My guest today again was Megan Bennett. I release new episodes every Monday morning, and you can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including the How of Business YouTube channel and my website, thehowofbusiness.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to The How of Business. For more information about our coaching programs, online courses, show notes pages, links, and other resources, please visit thehowofbusiness.com.